It's been said that power corrupts, but John Steinbeck said power does not corrupt, fear corrupts. Perhaps the fear of a loss of power. That's the theme that I read today. In 2024, I'm reading the whole Bible in its original languages, Hebrew, Aramaic and Greek. I'm using a reading plan that I wrote myself, which is available in an ebook I've released for free. Last night I corrected some errors in the book and also released versions with glosses in Chinese and Spanish. More translations are coming in the rest of January. There's not much Aramaic in the Bible, so I've spread out Daniel and Ezra across the year so that you read a verse of Aramaic roughly every day and a half. Today I read Daniel 2 verse 5, which is all about Nebuchadnezzar's fear of the unknown. The verse in Aramaic, Daniel 2 verse 5 says this: Anem elka v'amar lekasdeya, milta mini azda, hen la te hoda unani chelma, ufish re, hadamim tit avdun, avatechon nevali yit samun. And that means, and the king answered, and he said to the Chaldeans, the word from me is certain. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, your limbs will be torn apart and your houses turned into dunghills. Now, if you know Biblical Hebrew, then Biblical Aramaic is not really that hard. Much of the vocabulary is very similar. For example, in this verse, we have the word chelma, which means the dream, and is very similar to the Hebrew word chalam, which means he dreamed. There's a few differences, which once you get used to them, make reading Biblical Aramaic pretty simple. So in this verse, for example, instead of the Hebrew article ha at the beginning of a word, Aramaic nouns are made definite by adding a at the end of a word. Instead of the Hebrew masculine ending im, Aramaic has in. And the Biblical Aramaic verbal system is a little simpler than Hebrew, as it doesn't have a vayak tol. So whereas in Hebrew narrative you'd expect to see vayomer for and he said, here in Aramaic we just have the perfect verb with the conjunction, va'amar. Most of the differences are pretty straightforward, and if you have a decent amount of Biblical Hebrew, then if you just want to learn Biblical Aramaic, the best thing to do is just read a verse a day for 6 months or so. Now you can get a Biblical Aramaic grammar if you want, but if you know your Hebrew and just want to learn to read Biblical Aramaic, then a grammar can actually make things seem a bit more complicated than they are. So just reading it for a while, I think, really helps. That's one reason why I released my free Bible reading plan and e-reader, to encourage people to just read the Bible and Biblical Aramaic. Incidentally, reading Daniel chapter 2 verse 5, I remembered today that I haven't formatted Ketiv Koreh variations properly yet. I've been thinking about the best way to format these variations in an electronic reader when everyone's screen size will vary. And I hope to roll out an update version with a solution to that sometime in the coming week. So that's the language of Daniel's Aramaic. But what does Daniel chapter 2 verse 5 actually mean? Well, Nebuchadnezzar's been dreaming dreams. And if you remember from a few days ago in Daniel chapter 2 verse 1, this wasn't a pleasant experience for him. We're told his spirit was troubled and his sleep left him. Why is that? Well, it seems to be that he doesn't understand the dream, and so that makes him anxious. In the 95 Theses, Luther said that the difference between hell, purgatory and heaven could be said to be similar to the difference between despair, uncertainty and assurance. That's a really interesting pastoral insight, and I think it's relevant here. Nebuchadnezzar doesn't know what the dream means, and that highlights for him the fact that he's a limited creature who doesn't know the future and lives in constant uncertainty. In this life, none of us can truly be sure of anything, but if we have money and possessions, we can sometimes fool ourselves into feeling secure for a period of time. Nebuchadnezzar was ruler over the known world. He was exceedingly wealthy, but it just took a few nights without sleep and some dreams that he didn't understand to bring him on a huge bout of anxiety. Verse 5 shows us what that raw anxiety looked like in Nebuchadnezzar's life. Firstly, he couldn't trust people. He wouldn't tell the Chaldeans the dream so that they could interpret it for him. He wanted them to tell him the dream before they interpreted it, presumably because he was scared they were just going to blag their way through. So he just stopped trusting people. And secondly, he started overreacting to things. if the Chaldeans don't tell him the dream, then he says he'll have them torn limb from limb and their houses turned to dunghills. I'm actually not sure if it's possible to be more overreactive than that. Nebuchadnezzar's extreme reaction gives me a little insight into my natural response to uncertainty and anxiety. I become irrationally distrustful and I overreact to things. That's certainly true of me to some degree, even if it's not as extreme as it is in Nebuchadnezzar's life. One of the things I'm enjoying about reading the Bible this year, even just in this first week, is the insight that it gives me into myself like that. Why not have a go yourself at joining in and reading the Bible every day with me in 2024? If you want to do that in the Bible's original languages, then details of my free Bible reading plan and EPUB reader can be found in the description below. So, download the reader and read the Bible with me in 2024. And if you liked the video, please like the video. And if you want to follow along with my read through of the whole Bible in the original languages in 2024, hit subscribe and turn on notifications to get new videos as they're uploaded.